Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. We are back doing some math questions, and we're gonna do some a GED tonight. We're gonna do some sample questions, math questions for the GED folks. So maybe someone has a New Year's resolution that they want to fulfill by going to get their GED. So I decided to do some sample questions from GED. So here we go. We're not gonna hold you long. We're just gonna do about 8 problems and then we're gonna call it a night. So anywho, let's get started. So it says, assuming A, B, C, D are prime numbers, what is the LCM of A cubed, B, C squared, D squared, and A squared, B squared, C, and D cubed? Now, LCM, let's go through some of the vocabulary. LCM is the least common multiple. So let's write that down. So LCM, just to give you a little bit of background, because if you're getting your GED, you probably don't remember some of these terms. So basically, they just want to see what do these two expressions have in common. So they want to know what's the smallest thing that they have in common. I'm going to show you an easy way to find out. So the first expression is A cubed, B, C squared, D squared. And then I'm going to put this one right below, the next one right below the top, the first one. And this is going to be A squared, B squared. Actually, you know what? Let me spread it out some more, because I want to show you an easy way of looking at it. Let's do it again. So A cubed, B, C squared, D squared. And then this one is A squared, B squared, C, and D cubed. So they want to know what's the smallest thing that they have in common. So let's look at each one of the each one of the variables. So let's look at the A's. What do they have in common? So A cubed means A times A times A. A squared means A times A. So they both have two A's. This has two, that has two. So this is going to be A squared. So let's look at the B. So we have B has one B. B squared has two B's. So they both have one B. So let's say that's going to be a B. Now, let's look at the C's. You have C squared, which is C times C. And then you have C. They both have one C. And then you have D squared, which is D times D. And D cubed, which is D times D times D. They both have two D's. So what is going to be your least common multiple, or your LCM? It's going to be A squared, B, C, and D squared. And if you're looking at your answer choices, it's going to be this one here. Okay, let's go to another question. A new swimming pool is in the shape of a cube. A new swimming pool in the shape of a cube can hold a maximum of 3,375 cubic meters of water. What is the length of one side of this pool? So, a cube is like a box. The special thing about a cube is that all of the sides have the same length. So the width, the length, and the height all are the same. So this would be an actual cube. And they're saying that this is actually the pool. So how high it is from top to bottom is a length. How wide it is, okay, is a variable. And then how long it is the same variable. So they're telling you that the length and the width and the height are all the same. Okay? So whatever, we just want to know what's going to be the length of one of the sides. So what we can do here in order to find the volume of the cube, well, this is the volume of the cube. So this represents the volume, 3,375 cubic meters does represent the volume of the cube. How do you find the volume of the cube? It's going to be V is equal to X times X times X. Okay, so it's going to be the same number. So you got to figure out, well, which one of these numbers can I multiply 3 times to get 3,775? And that's the question you're trying to answer. X, X, and X, okay? So all you got to do is just calculate them. So let's start with 25. So if I say 25 times 25, I know, just because I know that, this equals 625, but I'll do math. So this is going to be 25. And I don't know the rules for GED. I don't know if you can use a calculator, when you can use a calculator. I don't know all those rules. So this is going to be 125 so far. Then we have 10, carry the 1. This is going to be 5. So it's 625 so far. Now I need to multiply it by 25 again. And I'm running out of space. So let me do it right here. 625 times 25. So I'm just taking this up here, that's all. And this is 5, 2, that's 10, 12, 31. And then we have 10, 5, and we have 12. But clearly this is way more than 3,375. So it's 5, 2, 6, 5, 1. Okay, too much, so we don't want that one. Okay, so let's try the 20. If I say 20 times 20, I get 400. And then if I multiply it by 20 again, you could do this little trick with, you get 8,000. That's too much. Okay, now if you do, let me give myself some space. Let's erase this. If we do 35, well, let's stop right there. If 25 was too much, then you know 35 is going to be too much. So it has to be 15. So let's do 15 times 15. Let's verify that it's this. And that's going to be 25, 7, placeholder, 5, 1. Added together, you get 5, 12, 2. Okay, so now do 225 times 15. And you get 5, 2, that's 12, 10, 11, placeholder. And this is going to be 5, 2, and 2 added together. And you get 5, 7, 3, 3. So your answer is going to be 15 meters. So what is the length of one side of the pool? It's 15 meters. So that means that all of these are 15 meters. 15 meters for the length, for the height, for the width. Okay. Let's go to another question. So for this question, it says, which of the following expressions is equivalent to the following? So you have, I don't know if you can see it that well, but what this says is you have a radical sign, the index is an N, and then your radicand, which is under the radical, is AB. So to translate this, you have to convert this from a radical expression to a rational exponent, and that's what you're doing. So you're going from a radical expression to a rational exponent. This is some vocabulary, just so if you need to look this up, what this stuff means. I'm just giving you some vocabulary to go with this. So how do we translate this? Well, underneath your radical, the AB is raised to a power of 1. So if I look at this together, this is raised to a power of 1. And in order to convert this from a radical expression to a rational exponent, you need to bring your n over, put it underneath the 1 as a numerator. As a denominator, and get rid of the radical sign. So this is going to really go to AB with the exponent of 1 over n. Okay, so the answer here is that. Okay, this, you probably need a lot more practice with this type of stuff, but it's not very difficult. It's just getting used to it. Let's go to another question. So it says, simplify the given expression. So with each one of these expressions in this division problem, you have to simplify or convert each one of your trinomials to, you would have to factor it. So you have to factor 3 of them really, and not all 4. So let's factor the x squared minus 3x plus 2. In order to factor, you have to identify the a, which is 1, the b, which is negative 3, and the c, which is 2. And where did I get the a, b, and c from? So let me start over with this part. So this is a quadratic, and the standard form for a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. So if you're looking at the standard form, in which this is in standard form, you have to identify your a, your b, and your c. Okay, so that's what I did here. My a was a 1, my b was a negative 3, and my c was a positive 2. So it takes on the same format. Okay, so in order to find out what is going to be how to factor this, you have to say the product of a times c. You have to say a times c, and then you need to say, well, a plus c. Sorry, not a plus c. You need to say, what is b? So a times c in this case is 1 times 2, and that equals 2. Now, if I add 1 plus 2, I need to get negative 3. So that's what I was supposed to do. I should have showed you better than that, but let's start that over. So hold on. I know I can do better than that. Hold on. So in order to find this, you have to say, you have to find the product of a times c, and then the sum needs to be the b value. Okay, so in this example, a times c is 1 times 2 is 2. That's what your product needs to be, and your sum needs to be negative 3. So what numbers can I multiply in order to get positive 2? I could say 1 times 2 gets me 2. I also can say negative 1 times negative 2 gets me 2. But which one of these is going to get me negative 3? So when I say 1 plus 2, I get 3. But when I say negative 1 plus negative 2, I get negative 3. So this is the combination that I want. Okay? So that just looked like a brief explanation of how to factor. But anywho, so if I need to factor this x squared minus 3x plus 2, I can just say it's going to be x minus 1 x minus 2. Okay, so I've checked this one off. I've done that one. So let's do the next one. You have x squared plus 2x minus 3. My a is 1, my b is 2, and my c is negative 3. So my product needs to be 1 times negative 3, which is negative 3. And my sum needs to be 2. So what numbers can I multiply in order to get negative 3? I can say 1 times negative 3 gets me negative 3. I also could say negative 1 times 3 gets me negative 3. But which one of these equals 2? So if I say 1 plus negative 3, I get negative 2. If I say negative 1 plus 3, I get positive 2. So this is the combination that I want. So to factor the x squared plus 2x minus 3, it's going to be x minus 1, x plus 3. So we did that one. So now let's do the last one, which is x squared minus 2x minus 15. My a is 1, my b is negative 2, and my c is negative 15. The product is 1 times negative 15 is negative 15. And then the sum has to be negative 2. So how can I get negative 15? I could say 3 times negative 5 gets me negative 15. I can say negative 3 times 5 gets me negative 15. Of course, I could say 1 times negative 15 gets me negative 15. I could say negative 1 times 15 gets me negative 15. So those are the different combinations to get negative 15 when you are multiplying. So how can I get a negative 2? So when I add this together, 3 plus negative 5 gets me negative 2. So I could just stop right there because that's the combination I want. But just to show you, negative 3 plus 5 gets you positive 2. I don't want that. 1 plus negative 15 gets me negative 14. And then negative 1 plus 15 gets me positive 14. So the combination I want is this, the positive 3 and the negative 5. So to factor this, it's going to be x plus 3, x minus 5. So let's go ahead and let's rewrite this problem. So we're going to rewrite this and without rewrite it from standard form to the factored form. So what I have here, let me erase these check marks. So now let's do this in a different color. So this is going to be x minus 1 times x minus 2. And then this one's going to be x minus 1 times x plus 3. Now, I gotta divide, but in order to solve this problem, I need to multiply it, and I need to flip the fraction. So now this x minus 2 is going to go on the bottom, and up top is going to be the factored form of x squared minus 2x minus 15. And so that translates into x plus 3, x minus 5. So now you can cross out some of your factors. So I know I could cross out this x minus 1 up here, and it's x minus 1 in your denominator. So a numerator and denominator, if they match, cross them out. And then I have an x minus 2 I can cross out, and an x minus 2 here. One at the top, one at the bottom, I can cross them out. Lastly, I can cross out the x plus 3 and this x plus 3. So the only thing I'm left with is x minus 5, and that is my answer. Alright, so things that I did in here, we had to factor, and then we also had to divide fractions. So it's a lot going on. It's a lot of skills going on in this particular problem that you have to know for the GED. So let's go to another problem. Okay, so it says, what is the factored form of the given expression? Now, for problems like these, you're like, I don't feel like dealing with this. So what I would do is actually work out each one of the problems. Okay, so let me show you how to work it out real quick. So for the first one, you have, let's rewrite it down here, x minus 4, whoops, plus 2y times x minus 4 plus 2y. Okay, so I'm going to mark this in gray. So this is the one I'm doing. So you got to multiply. What's x times x? Is x squared. And then this is minus 4x. You got to multiply this x times everything. And this is going to be plus 2xy. Then you keep going. Now you're working with the negative 4. And let's do it in a different color. So I do a negative 4 times the x, and that's negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And then negative 4 times 2y is going to be negative 8y. Now let's do it, the last one. You have to do 2y times x, and you get 2xy. 2y times negative 4 gives you negative 8y, sorry. And then you do 2y times 2y, and you get positive 4y squared. So now what you need to do is combine like terms to see, well, which does it break down, or does it simplify enough to equal the answer up top? So is there another x squared in my expression? No. So I'm just going to put x squared. Cross that out. And then, hold on, I should do this in gray, shouldn't I? I should. So this is going to be the answer for the gray one. So it's going to be x squared. Cross that out. Now let's look at the 4x. I have negative 4x here. Where's another 4? Here's another x. Are there any more? So there are only 2. So this is going to be minus 8x. So I can cross those out. Now let's look for all the xy. So I got a plus 2xy and another plus 2xy. So together that's going to get me plus 4xy. Cross that out. Now you have 16. I have a 16, which is a constant. Do I have any other constants? I don't. So I can say plus 16. Cross that out. Now I'm at negative 8y. I have negative 8y, and here's another negative 8y. That's minus 16y. Cross that out. And then you have plus 4y squared. So does that match the given one? And let's make the given one yellow. Does it match this? It does not. So this is not an answer. Okay, so what you do, you can check each one of these. I already know that the answer is going to be D, so I'm going to show you this one. So let's do this one. This is going to be my answer, and I'm going to show you how. So we have x minus 4 plus 2y times x minus 4 minus 2y. So we're going to do the whole thing where you test them all out. So if I do this and this and this to all three, I get x squared minus 4x minus 2xy. And then let's do another color. Let's do it with the negative 4 to all three. So it'd be negative 4x plus 16 plus 8y. Alright, now make sure I did that right. So negative 4x, yes, plus 16, yes, plus 8y, correct. Okay, let's do another one. And then 2y times all three, and you get plus 2xy. minus 8y minus 4y squared. Now let's combine the like terms. So this is the only x squared that we have, so we're going to write that down. Now let's look for all the variables that have an x. This has an x, this has an x, and those are the only two. So that's minus 8x, so we can cross those out. Now we have negative 2xy and another 2xy, but this is positive. So a negative plus a positive, and they're the same term, they cancel out. So those actually go to 0. We don't have to write that down. Now let's move. Our only constant is 16, so we're just going to put plus 16 and cross that out. Now we have another, we're at the y's, we have another same term but different coefficient. This has a positive 8, this has a negative 8. They're the same thing, but they have different signs, so you can cross them out because they equal 0. And so you're left with just negative 4y squared. So that is going to be our answer. Okay, so you don't need to probably, with this type of question, especially if you're a GED, if you're trying to get your GED, you might like math, you might not like math, you might remember some of the math, might not remember all of the math, but when it comes to test taking skills, for a question like this, I would just test each one of the answer choices out. I wouldn't even try to figure out how to factor this. I would just multiply this stuff and see which answer I'm going to get. And it came out to be, these are not numbered or lettered, so I would call this answer choice D. So let's keep going. Next question. What is the value of g of x equals negative x to the 6th minus x to the 5th when x is equal to negative 1? So we're working with a function. And what they want you to do is replace the letter x with negative 1. So really you're saying g of negative 1 is equal to negative. Actually, let me write it differently so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so we got g of x equals negative x to the 6th minus x to the 5th. And they tell you that x is equal to negative 1. So in place of the x, I'm going to put a negative 1. Every time I see an x, you put a negative 1. So I'm going to keep this minus sign, but the x is going to become a negative 1. And I'm still going to put it to the 6th power. Keep the subtraction sign, and this x becomes a negative 1. And it's going to be raised to the 5th power. So what does this mean? When you have negative 1 to the 6th power, this means negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you have to multiply it. Now, if you remember the rules, then apply the rules. But if you don't remember the rules, then you're going to have to do this. So this, you take 2 at a time. So what's negative 1 times negative 1? It's going to be a 1. And then you just rewrite this stuff over. Now, until you get good at this stuff, this is probably what you're going to have to do. Yeah, it's a lot of work. But if you're trying to take this test one time and only one time, you're going to take your time and do what you need to do. You just keep doing them 2 at a time and multiply them together. You got to know your integer rules. If you don't know your integer rules, this would be problematic. So, what does negative 1 to the 6th power equal? 1. So, here's the problem here. You cannot leave off the leading negative sign. This leading negative stays, and then what you've calculated was just this portion, and that's a 1. So, you still got negative 1 as a answer for this portion of the problem, but you got to remember that the negative 1 that was in front of the parentheses stays. So with that, what else stays is the minus sign. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. So now you need to do negative 1 to the 5th power. So negative 1 to the 5th power, until you learn the rules, is probably what you're going to have to do. Write this 5 times. And because it's a negative 1, it's not that difficult. when it comes to multiplying. So that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take 2 at a time. Take your time. Do this and just keep going 2 at a time. But you gotta know your integer rules. If you don't know your integer rules, this is gonna be a problem. Okay, so -1 to the 5th power is equal to -1. So I'm gonna write that down here. So again, here are some more integer rules. We have -1 minus -1. Here, what you need to know is that when they're side by side like this, is really kind of multiplication. Those same signs change to a positive. So this is going to be G of -1 is equal to -1. Instead of putting minus and -1, you're going to put the plus sign. And then this becomes a +1. So -1 plus 1 is equal to 0. So G of -1 is equal to 0. That's your answer. So which answer choice is it? It's going to be this one here. Okay, let's keep going. So it says, what will be the percent increase in the area of a circle if its radius is increased by 40%? So this is dealing with the concept of percent of change. So this is something you can look up. Percent of change. Percent of change, the kind of formula is the difference of the change. Difference in change over the original. Okay, keep that in mind. So this is a fraction that you have to keep in mind. So with this one here, it's asking about the area of a circle. So first off, to find the area of a circle, it is A equals pi r squared. And the information in our text says that it was the radius is increased by 40%. So currently the radius is r. Okay, if you want to increase the radius by 40%, so what you have to do is says r plus radius times 40%. Okay, so this translates, and put the increased radius. Increase, this is what it's going to be. So it's going to be 1r plus 0.40 r. You can combine them together, get 1.4 or 40 r. Okay, so that's your increased radius. So now your formula goes from this to A equals pi 1.4 r squared. Okay, so what is 1.4 times 1.4? 1.4 times 1.4 is 16, and that is 5. Placeholder, this is 4, 1. So this is 6, 9, 1, 2 decimal places. Okay, so your area, instead of being A equals pi r squared, it's going to be A equals pi 1.96 r squared. Okay, so this is where we have to do now our difference in change. So what changed for the area? And this is like, now we gotta subtract. It looks a little, it gets a little, it looks a little funny, but this is what you gotta do. So we're gonna subtract these two quantities, and the quantities I'm talking about is really these two expressions right here. Okay, so if I was to rewrite the expressions, this one would be 1 pi r squared. This one would be 1.96 pi r squared. And this is how it would look. 1.96 pi r squared minus 1 pi r squared. And I did this on purpose just so you can see this is what I'm subtracting. So you could put their 0.00 here, but that's all you're doing if you're just subtracting this, okay? So this would be my difference in change. That's the first part of your fraction, or your numerator of your fraction. Difference in change, okay? So it would be 0.96. All right, pi r squared. So up top, you have 0.96 pi r squared. And what was the original? The original was just pi r squared. That's what the original was. This original was this one here. So in order to find the percent of change, you find the difference in change, which is the top portion of your fraction, over the original, which is pi r squared. All right, so knowing the rules of simplifying fractions, and then these quantities are being multiplied together, I can cross out this pi r squared and this one as well, and so I'm left with just 0.96, and that is your answer, 0.96. Okay, let's do one more question, and then we'll be done for the evening. It says James wants to retrieve a ball stuck on the edge of a roof. If his horizontal distance from the rooftop is 20 feet and he needs a 29-foot ladder to reach the roof, how high is the roof? So what we can do is, let's say that this is the roof here, and we'll just draw a line to represent the roof, and then there's a ball at the edge because that's what they said. All right, and so this is the ground. So drawing a picture is probably very helpful. So and this is going to make a 90-degree angle, so we're going to end up using a Pythagorean theorem. So it says if the horizontal distance from the rooftop is 20 feet, if his horizontal distance, so they're talking about from here to here is the horizontal distance. So if that is 20 feet, it says, and he needs a 29-foot ladder to reach the roof. But we know a ladder is going to be leaning against the house. So your ladder is going to be here. Whoa, what just happened? And that is 29 feet. Remember, this is your ladder over here. So that means that James is right here. This is James. Okay, so what we want to know is how high is the roof. So you want to find the height from the ground to the rooftop. So in order to do this, we're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem. If you're not familiar with it, this is how you spell it. You need to do some research on it. Pythagorean Theorem. So, Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So typically, if you were to label your pieces, your c squared, or your c, would be your hypotenuse, and then you would have your a and your side b. So if we're going to label this, this would be x squared, my b would be 20 squared, and my c would be 29 squared. To solve this, you say x squared, and I know 20 times 20 is going to be 400. I just don't know what 29 times 29 is. So let me calculate that. So this is 1, 8, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. I don't have a calculator out, so y'all just bear with me. So this is 114. That's 841. Okay, so 841. Then I need to subtract 400 from both sides of my equation. And this is x squared is equal to 441. Now I just so happen to know that I know what the square root of 441 is. Um, it's going to be 21. So I take the square root of both sides, and I do know that that's going to be 21 feet. Now, you don't have to have this memorized if you're able to use a calculator. If you're able to use a calculator, then you just use the square root button on your calculator and you'll be done. So anywho, that is it for tonight. I wanted to come on here and do some GED questions for anyone who is pursuing that this year. Next week I plan to do some more GED questions. So if you know someone who is going to be trying to pursue their GED, tell them just to hit me up and I can help them out. So anywho, I will talk to you guys next Monday. Ta-ta for now.